He's working through it.
All right, you're live.
All right. It looks like we're live, Nick. Good morning, everyone. As we promised, we're bringing to you directly an interview here on Facebook Live. We are with the Vice President of Broker Relations from Zillow. Nick, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Vadim, nice to be with you today.
All right, thank you. So say hello to David. David's here as well, if you guys can see him in the camera. This is sort of our first
Hey, Nick.
feed.
Thanks for joining us.
So we're going to try this, and thanks for spending time with us, and we'll kind of go from there. So Nick, I've got in my hand, I'm going to show to everyone right here an article from Inman Connect. This article came out, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere beginning of 2017. It came out on February 27th. So I'm going to dive right into it. I'm going to talk about the value proposition, and I'm going to talk about why we're here. So if you're a real estate agent or an independent broker, you probably should be paying attention to this. If you're not paying attention to it, then maybe perhaps rethink the industry you're in. So this article specifically talks about, and I'm going to show it, it leads the way with saying that real estate agents will soon lose the ability to manually post listings on Zillow or Trulia. And then there's all kinds of things I've highlighted. One of the most interesting things here, it says that Zillow advised agents to check their local MLS and see if the MLS feed works for them or not, and to find out if their corporate office, if you're a national company, if you're feeding listings into Zillow directly. Let me ask this question, and we'll kind of lead the way with this. Let me understand this correct. If I am a small independent broker, 15, 20 agents in a local market in Columbus, and if my local MLS decided not to feed listings into Zillow, would it be a fair statement to say that my brokerage's listing are not going to appear in Zillow or Trulia?
It's a great question. I appreciate you starting this off with a softball. Gosh, right into it. No, this is a great question, and obviously based on that article and some announcements we've made, this has come up, and it's a question that a lot of people have asked. Before I answer that directly, let me give everyone a little bit of a baseline to know how we got to where we're at today, because I think that'll help in everyone's understanding of where we're at today and what choices people have going forward. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally. That answers our questions. Why did you guys do it? So that's perfect. Go ahead.
So listing quality has always been something that's important to agents and more important to consumers. And this is, I think, come to light, especially in low inventory markets, which consumers are out there looking at real estate and they want to know exactly what's on the market now and quickly. And I have a real life story. My sister-in-law has been living with us for 6 months trying to buy a home. And we went to look at a property that was listed the first day, and we were in the house with 28 other showings. 28 other showings.
Sounds about right.
And there were 4 offers in the first few hours. This is not an uncommon scenario across many markets. And so the idea of getting consumers the information that they want and are demanding quickly is absolutely at a peak. So let's go back, rewind the clock 2 years ago when a lot of the data came from ListHub, and that's how listings were posted to Zillow and Trulia. We only had partnerships with about 25 MLSs across the country. Fast forward 2 years, post ListHub, when we made that change, we now have partnerships with over 580 of the approximate 800 MLSs across the country, and we have broker feeds with nearly 25,000 brokers. So 2 years ago, one of the best feed sources you could have is directly from a broker. Today, many of those broker feeds are delayed 4, 8, 12, or 24 hours. And what happens is agents are going out listing property. They want it in the consumer's hands as quickly as possible. And because of the way data hops from source to source and gets to us, every time it hops, it has potential to have inaccuracies or be delayed. So last year, we built the concept of what we call multi-sourcing, which is MLS has said they're the main source of the data, and whenever we can go to the direct main source and avoid hops, it's more efficient for the agent, it's more efficient for the brokerage, and it's better for the consumer. And so now what we do is we go into markets and say to any broker or major franchise company, we continue to take their feed. We also get listings directly from the MLS. That way we can get them and update them in less than 15 minutes. And we marry the two feeds together. And people say, well, why not take one source or the other? Some MLSs have restrictions. You can't use high-def photos. You can only have 15 photos. Your description count can only be a certain size. But we all know consumers want to see big, beautiful listings online. High-res photos, lots of photos, and a robust description. So in the case where MLSs may restrict some of the entry points, we go over here and then turn to the broker or franchise feed, and we can take those enhancements and blend those two feeds. So it creates a really efficient system. So this idea of May 1st coming around and saying no more manually posted is a scenario where in many cases an agent puts up a listing. If it goes under contract or has a price change, it doesn't get updated, or if it sells, it never gets taken down. And so that's the scenario where a consumer walks in and says, Vadim, I want to see this house. And you look at it and say, that house sold 4 months ago and it's still showing active on Zillow. So we're trying to get the data as quick, accurate, and beautiful as possible, and that's what agents want.
So that answers a huge question. So that puts away a huge complaint. Because we hear this all the time. People say, oh my God, I went on Zillow, the listing was showing active and it sold 2 months ago. So I did not know this, so you just answered my question. So I guess the question is, why did those listings didn't get updated? Now we have the answers, because those were direct agent feeds. It was agent's responsibility, not the broker's responsibility to report at MLS that it's in contract. And so they lingered forever and still active while people thought they were, I can go look at this home, but it's closed now. So now you're getting rid of that and eliminating, the whole confusion as to how fast does the data get updated versus that individual agent doing it. You've got the brokerage responsible for it. Is that correct?
Yeah, think of it. I use the analogy of like getting in Uber or getting in a car service, which think of us as we're just the vehicle. It's your data. You list the property or the broker's data. When you send it to us, we're the vehicle and we just show it. And I use Uber as an example. If I get in my car and say, drive me north, and I never tell them what exit to get off on, I live in Denver, I'm going to end up in Wyoming. Right. So we sit here, we have to tell someone, or they have to tell us where to turn. If the price changes, if the status changes, if it goes off market, as soon as someone tells us that, i.e. through a feed, then we change it immediately on the site. But it's when that breakdown of someone doesn't tell us, or we don't have the runway, i.e. the feed from a good, solid source that can be updated quickly, then we just don't know to change it.
Okay. So that leads me to the next question. So the next question, I guess, we talked about earlier today, in our conversation. The reality of it that now that the brokers have to make a clear and passage choice to where if it's going to be their corporate office being a brand that they affiliate with to participate with Zillow and feed that through a single syndication, or if I'm an independent broker and my company doesn't do it, you guys have now implemented a brand new broker platform. Is that correct that 99% of protected listings, and that, we can get into detail as to what protected listing is at some other point, but the program of protected listings, quote unquote, is now gone?
So I'm going to rephrase the term protected listings, and we referred to that originally as featured listings. And what you're talking about is where only the listing agent is showing on each particular listing.
Correct.
There are a number of things that have driven this. One of them is, keep in mind, consumers are our North Star, which is we've designed the site to have consumers have a great experience, and that's what's driven traffic. And sometimes what the industry wants and what consumers want collide. They absolutely headbutt. And at the end of the day, consumers are driving this online experience, and if you provide them with what they want, they will come back and visit you a lot. If we try to control the consumer, which is a tendency of what we've done in the industry many times, the consumer rebels and decides to go somewhere else. So let me give you a stat. Online leads, 47% of them go with no response. An additional 24% only get one response. So 71% of leads that are generated for real estate professionals get one response or less. Consumers' number one complaint to us when they come on the site and submit information or submit a request for information, they don't get a response. They come back and say, hey, Zillow, Trulia, I never got a response from anyone. And so this is an example of where industry and consumers can sometimes clash. And consumers are also demanding choice. There's been a lot of discussion over the past 2 decades that I've been licensed in this industry about agency. And in a lot of states, they don't permit dual agency. I'm in one of them, actually. And in some cases, consumers want a buyer's agent. And so they're looking for that choice, and they're also looking for a response. And so we compare this opportunity to contact other agents as choice, and similar in some respects to IDX.
Okay. It does make perfect sense. So then the new platform, the new broker portal, if you will, the new broker system, it allows, from what I've seen so far, the listing agent, if your company participates in that level of protection, if you will, is always at the top. It says that it is the listing agent next to their name, and their phone number's there, and the requested information goes there, all these things. So tell me about this new platform, because the ultimate question, I guess, on the broker side here, if the local MLS says, okay, we're not feeding this, we're not doing that, and we'll discuss that at some other point, as to what MLSs are choosing. And I read this article again right here. It says you guys are now working with more than 578 MLSs, I think, and more and more independent brokers are signing on. Tell me about the actual platform for an independent broker. What does that platform look like? What are the benefits? Because the only most important question anybody asks is, what's in it for me? So tell me about that.
So let's make sure we separate. We're talking two subjects here. One is how brokers and agents get their listings posted on the site, and we kind of address that by having options through the MLS, through their broker, a combination of both. And then the second is this new program, which we call Premier Broker.
Okay.
And for all the brokers that are out there, not brand new news, but we know that brokerage margins have been under severe pressure for the past decade or two, but especially the past decade. Brokerage margins are difficult regardless of your economic model. And so brokers come to us, and there are essentially four things important to most brokers: recruiting, retention, getting their agents productive, and making a profit. And that's pretty much the framework that fits into most all brokerages. But we have this huge audience, 170 million unique visitors a month come to the sites, and brokers came to us and said, hey, my agents can buy advertising and generate leads from you, but I want to do that on the company side, whether that's for my entire brokerage, whether that's for an E-team or something of that flavor, so that I can not only push leads to my agents to increase their productivity, but maybe I make a profit as well. And agents, if they have a good lead, a quality lead, are generally willing to pay to their broker some type of fee or referral, et cetera, if the broker can do some of the heavy lifting. So fast forward today, we have launched recently Premier Broker, which is essentially the same as our Premier Agent flagship product, which a broker can advertise, generate leads, and it has essentially 5 functions. The advertising campaign, it comes with concierge service, which is a lead comes in, we guarantee it's answered live by someone on our concierge team within 5 minutes. We're right now tracking at just under 90 seconds. We ask questions: are you looking to buy, sell, or rent? And have you signed an agreement with an agent? And if they haven't, we actually do a hot transfer to wherever the broker designates. They have a full technology stack that goes with this. They have monthly coaching. And then I think what's really important is the reporting, which we can actually deliver on a regular basis, a monthly progress report to the broker. It shows every agent in their company they've designated to be a recipient of these company-generated leads, how many they've claimed, how many they've contacted, and how many have converted and gone to closing. So brokers can track exactly, here's my spend on advertising, and they get a monthly progress report to say, here's my return on investment.
Okay, so now knowing that and knowing what these systems are and how they're going to be moving forward, looking at this article again, I made some notes. Tell me more about, if your MLS does not participate and your broker doesn't participate, what happens to the listing? How does it, if it doesn't appear on Zillow? Tell me stats. I mean, if I'm not participating in this somehow, and again, it's a different conversation, a different day. How many unique visitors do you guys get every single week? Do you know those answers? I mean, I don't know if you have any data in front of you.
So we can run it on a local level, but we hit our peak, which was 171 million uniques last year, and we're averaging about 160 million unique users per month currently. So it's a huge audience. So to answer your question, going back to how you get listings to the site, is if you don't have a path with your MLS, you don't have a path with your broker, the good news is the vast majority across the country does have one of those paths available. But for those very small percentage that doesn't have either one of those paths, you can't get the listing to the site. And so that's tough. And so what we tell agents is we try to make available options for brokers and for MLSs to set up different types of fees. So I would say in that scenario that if you're an agent or a broker in that scenario that you don't have a path, especially on the broker side, reach out to us and let us walk you through, here are the paths that you could consider as a broker, or here's how you might be able to set up a broker feed. There are options. And so we don't want anyone left out and not having those options, but we also want to be able to present to anyone that doesn't think that they have a path. We want to present what the options are in their local market.
Well, I'll be honest with you. The three questions I had, you've answered. I know you have very limited amount of time, so I'm going to throw you under the bus as usual. We've had this relationship now for over 15 years where I always put you on the spot or do things that you kind of roll your eyes and go, oh my God, why did he do that? So a friend of mine...
Really? What a shocker.
Right. So a friend of ours, one of the local guys here in Columbus, posted something on Facebook yesterday, and he said, how come their estimates are always wrong, or at least some of them are? My response was, this estimate I based is, I'm sure it comes from a word estimate, and it says roughly. Tell me, do you know, and I know this is not something maybe you do, and maybe somebody internally could never answer that question, how did his estimates, what's the algorithm? Do you know the justification of algorithm as to how that works?
So first off, I want to give everyone a resource to go to educate themselves, which is Zillow.com/Zestimate. And on there, you're going to find out how a Zestimate is calculated. It's going to give you some specifics on the algorithm. It's going to tell you your local marketplace. You can figure out how accurate. Right now, nationally, we're at about 4.5%
okay.
on accuracy. But every market's local. We know that real estate's local. But you can go on and search and look at your local market and see what that looks like. Here are a couple pieces of advice on this estimate. One is you can update data on the listing that will affect the algorithm. So we have a living database of 110 million homes across the country, and estimates are updated every single night. And so the information that we can take, any quantitative data, if you think beds, baths, square footage, lot size, comparable home sales in the area, all of that goes into calculating what that estimate is. Now, most real estate professionals know when you go out and price a property, typically you give the seller a range because you want to sell the house for the most amount of money in the least amount of time, and we know if you overprice it, it's going to increase days on market. So here's my recommendation. Don't get just stuck on the actual estimate number. Scroll down on that home details and look at the estimate information, and it's going to give you a range of where that property sits. Because we all know that each property, even in a tract home community, may be a little unique. It may have upgrades. It may not be updated. There may be certain things that Zillow hasn't seen the house, and so we don't know. But it's a starting point. But the other piece is update the information. And I have a real-life example of my own home when I finished my basement a few years ago, and I hadn't entered that information. I listed my home for sale last year, updated all the information. My estimate changed by 30%, and it's extremely accurate. But the data of my home wasn't accurate before, so the estimate wasn't accurate. Here's the other thing that I give as recommendation for real estate agents. I was speaking several months ago, and in the market that I was speaking at, the median error rate was 7.8%. And an agent raised their hand and had a question and said, don't make it any more accurate. And I said, that's not what I expected you to say. And she said, because I use it when I list homes to show my value to price properties. Now, I don't offer up those estimates in my presentation, but likely the seller is going to say, but Stacy, my estimate says, and she pulls it out and says, I'm glad you've done that research. I have too. Let me show you why, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see how that builds the value prop. So I would say it's similar to my friend David Knox when he used to talk about how to overcome the commissionectomy. It's being able to make sure you're informed, knowledgeable, and overcome the objections. But it's also a talking point. And if someone's looking to buy or sell and they're talking about this estimate, turn it into a client.
I like it. Well, it's 11:19. I appreciate your time. I know you have to jump on the other call. Thank you for taking your time today. People know where to find you. I know you're on the internet as usual, but thanks for the value proposition today of sharing your information with us. Say hello to the family, and again, we all appreciate your time today.
Okay, thanks, Vadim. Always good to talk with you. Take care.
Oh, you too. Thanks. Bye. We're still live, right? All right. Well, you heard it. You heard it here directly. And I'm going to say this to Gordon. Gordon, I hope he answered your question about Zestimates. And I hope that there was some value today. Our hopes as a company is to bring you these interviews at least every 2 weeks or so. Hopefully we can get some people on the phone or have them here in person. I think in person will be a lot more fun. But if we could get him here in person, and we're hoping to get John Fisher out here. I don't know if he's watching and listening. I told him that we're going to be doing this. We may even, Dom and I, run up to Cleveland to see him. And so John has been a personal friend for years. He's probably one of the biggest real estate know-it-all guys. Like, he stays in tune with pretty much anything that's happening in the marketplace. He's doing a really interesting, bye Dave. Dave has to go to luncheon. Bye Dave. Bye-bye. So hopefully we can get John either in here, or we'll go up to Cleveland or do this on the phone again and get some other topic lined up. We thank you for tuning in today. If you have any more questions or want to send us an email or do something live, let us know. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Have a great day, folks.